Exposed, the sinister secrets of a cursed family's spine-chilling struggle to survive 30 days. The shadows slipped along the walls of Sarah Miller's home like whispers from the past. She held her breath, heart racing, terrified of what she might see in the barely flickering light. What was once just a house now felt like a living, breathing thing. Rumors swirled about the Felder family who vanished within these walls 30 years ago, abandoned dreams, haunting memories, and a community that turned its back. In her deepest bones, Sarah felt it, that sinister pulse of history echoing around her as she tried to keep her children safe. Every night, the air thickened with dread. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows grew longer. She clenched her kids close, flinching at every creak of the floorboards. Outside, her neighbors were always watching, eyes behind dusty curtains darting away when she turned. Were they protecting secrets? Or plotting something darker? They spoke in hushed tones, laughter spilling into silence when she walked by. The chill in the air nipped at her sanity, loneliness crawled under her skin, whispering that she was more alone than she ever imagined. During morning walks to school, she noticed the way neighbors cast brisk glances her way, uncomfortable, hostile. What did they know? Why did they share that cowardly bond while she struggled? Maybe that's what secluded people do, she thought. But as she crossed the intersection where the diner hummed with life, she felt the weight of everyone's judgment like a noose tightening around her neck. Looming gray clouds hung low, threatening rain but also suggesting a deepening storm building within the community. As night fell, her children, usually fearless bundles of energy, now quivered under their blankets. They claimed to hear the whispers, the invitations to come outside. Sarah's heart sank. In the silence of her home, cursed by the past, she could almost hear the faint notes of a children's lullaby, sung just beyond the walls. Panic rose, hot and suffocating. She pulled the covers tighter around them, and felt eyes watching the edges of the yard cloaked in darkness. Suddenly, a figure, a tall, gaunt silhouette, prowled beyond her view. When Sarah turned, it melted back into the shadows like a nightmare slipping away upon waking. Noise outside her window echoed, every rustle felt like a threat. The true terror rose within her. How was she supposed to protect her children when her own home turned against them? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. With every flicker of the lights, the house seemed to coax the outside in dark secrets, hidden truths that covered the community like an unshakable fog. The true curse stemmed from there. The neighbors were tied to the Felder legacy, conspirators disguised in friendly facades. Frantic knocks on her door interrupted her thoughts, a steady rhythm bringing her to the brink. A storm rumbled overhead, as if the sky itself knew of her rising fears. With beating heart, she faced her nightmare, realizing those outside were no longer just specters of her imagination. They were closer than she thought, ready to reveal the darkest of conspiracies that laid in wait for her family. Would she muster the courage to unravel it all, or would she succumb to the very place meant to be her sanctuary? The question lingered in the air, spinning a web of tension, waiting to be answered. The pounding at the door intensified, a rapid drumroll that echoed inside her head. Sarah hesitated, frozen at the foot of the staircase, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. "Mommy, I'm scared," whispered little Lily from the couch, her gentle voice quaking, eyes wide and desperate for comfort. "Sure, it's okay, honey," Sarah murmured, adrenaline coursing through her like wildfire. She swallowed hard, taking a deep breath, and crept toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last, the floorboards creaking under her weight, as if they too were reluctant to confront what lay outside. The knocking stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence that felt charged with anticipation. Gone was the rhythm of fear, instead, there was an eerie stillness, as if the world was holding its breath. "Who is it?" she called out, voice trembling. A gust of wind rattled the window, and Sarah's nerves flared. She approached the window, peering through the curtain's slits, but only darkness stared back. Nothing but thick shadows in the night, creeping and coiling like hidden serpents. Then, a voice low and rasping, barely above a whisper. "Open the door, Sarah, we need to talk. It's about the Felder family." It twisted her insides. How did they know her name? What did they want? She felt the weight of their words hang in the freezing air. The very mention of the Felders sent prickles of fear down her spine, memories of the warning tales spun by neighbors who dared not tread close to the abandoned house. "Leave us alone," she shouted, heart thudding wildly against her ribs. The kids picked up on her fear, huddling together like two frightened birds seeking shelter. "Please, Sarah. We need to warn you. They're coming for you." The voice cracked, urgency flooding into the quiet darkness. It was accompanied by a sound, a shuffle on the porch. Someone was leaning against her door, anxious to be let in. Before Sarah could register the threat, the shadow that haunted her home whirled around her, a darkness sweeping into the room, palpable and cold. The lights flickered violently, plunging her into a patchwork of light and shadow. She spun around, eyes darting to the children. "Stay close." Lily whimpered softly, and Sarah's stomach plummeted, a stark reminder of how vulnerable they truly were. The lights flickered out completely, plunging the house into a void. Panic surged, a wrenching tidal wave, and she raced back to her kids, whispering reassurances that felt hollow as the silence swallowed her words. "Mommy?" Jake's tiny voice broke through the dark. "What is happening?" She dug her nails into her palms, fighting to maintain composure. "Stay quiet. Just hold on to me." They pressed against her, warmth and fear merging, forging a fragile shield against the encroaching dread. Then came a crash, something shattered on the porch outside. It was followed by a sinister hush, a feeling of something wrong, something watching them. Her mind raced. Who would do this? Why were her neighbors involved? Were they aware of the evil looming outside? The tension twisted tightly around them as each second dragged on. She couldn't stay in the dark, a part of her felt it, an invitation lingering in the shadows outside the walls, tempting her to open the door to engage with whatever horror lurked beyond. But then, the familiar lullaby danced through her mind, echoing sweetly yet chillingly. Her heart raced. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about confronting the very thing that haunted her family and learning whether she had the strength to face it head-on. Suddenly, a quiet voice, seeming to emerge from the shadows, slithered into her thoughts. "You have a choice, Sarah. Open the door or stay hidden. But know this, the truth will always find you." And within that moment of shuddering uncertainty, she felt it, a chain of fate linked to the past, pulling taut. The door loomed like an abyss before her, whispering her name. What would she choose? The decision could change everything. Would she unlock that door, and if she did, would it seal her family's fate? The question loomed larger than life, ready to swallow her whole. The oppressive darkness swirled around Sarah like a living thing, every breath stinging her lungs. The kids were still close, their small bodies shaking against hers. If only she could hold on to that warmth and banish the fear lurking just beyond the edges of her mind. Then, another crash jolted her, the sound tearing through the silence like a scream. It was closer now, more menacing. "Mommy!" Jake cried, clutching her hand tighter. She could feel his little fingers tremble, raw panic radiated from him. "Stay quiet," she breathed, trying to keep her voice steady. In that moment, dread twisted in her belly at the realization for the first time, whatever was outside, it wasn't just looking to frighten them. "Please, I can help you." The pleading voice echoed again, a desperate cry that seeped through the closed door. "You must listen. The Felders are cursed. Their curse, it has bound them to you." The mention of the Felders twisted Sarah's heart. The stories whispered in the neighborhood were growing increasingly real. Hadn't they all said that the family had vanished without a trace? Hadn't they always looked over their shoulders, fearing that some residue of their dark past would slip into the night. Another rumble, this time like footsteps pacing on the porch, flooded her with dread. The shadows outside shifted, moving toward the door. It felt like an invitation. Suddenly, the power flickered back to life, casting the room in a harsh light. Shadows shrank away, revealing the frantic eyes of her children. Panic surged like wildfire in her chest. What if it was too late? What if whatever was out there was already inside? "Mommy, please." Lily whimpered, her voice fragile and thin. "Not a word until I say so." Sarah whispered fiercely, her mind racing. She squeezed their hands, feeling the unbreakable bond of family against the claustrophobic pulse of fear. It was a choice between safety and the unknown. Would they stay hidden in this fragile sanctuary, or would she risk everything for the truth? Sarah's heart raced. The pounding returned, a relentless rhythm urging her to act. She could either let the illusion of safety keep her in the dark or face the truth behind that cursed name. "Go to the back," she whispered urgently. "Hide in the closet. I will figure this out." "Mommy, don't." Jake protested, eyes wide and pleading. "Now." The command sliced through her fear. The children obeyed, retreating into the dim light of the hallway as Sarah drew closer to the door. Heart pounding, she wrestled with the doorknob, second-guessing her own resolve. The voice was growing frantic, pulling at her conscience. "Open the door. The darkness is coming, and they are waiting for you to let them in." With her breath caught in her throat, she prepared herself. Whatever truth waited on the other side of that door might just reveal the depths of horror looming at her threshold. With shaking hands, she turned the knob, a cacophony of goodbyes echoing in her head. The memories of laughter, life, all threatened to vanish if she made this wrong choice. Would the truth really set her free, or would it bind her deeper into the cursed fate entwined with the Felders? As the door creaked open squealing like a mournful ghost, the darkness poured in. It was no longer a choice, but a reckoning. And then there was a gust of frigid wind, extinguishing the light at once, plunging her into darkness where screams didn't reach. In that suffocating silence, she felt a presence beside her, breath hot and hungry, and whispered through the dark, "You've finally opened the door. Now, tell me, do you want to know the truth?" As her heart raced against the impossible scenario unfolding, Sarah realized, it was only just beginning. What would she uncover lurking in this void? The darkness was thick, almost alive, wrapping around Sarah, pulling her in. The air turned stale as she stood frozen, the whispers curling around her ears like serpents. "Do you want to know the truth?" repeated the voice, each word crawling over her skin with an unsettling familiarity. "Who are you?" She staggered, forcing the question out through her dry throat. A low chuckle echoed from the void. "I am the whisper of the past, the weight of their curse. You've become part of their story whether you like it or not." Sarah felt her heart thrumming in her chest, a frantic drum urging her to either flee or fight. "Get away from my children!" she shouted, feeling a surge of fierce protectiveness. The shadows stirred, as if amused, swirling like smoke to reveal fleeting glimpses of pale, twisted faces. Spectral figures danced along the edges of her vision, their hollow eyes beckoning. "You think you can protect them? Curses linger, seeping into flesh like poison. The Felders chose their path long ago and now you must choose yours." A memory suddenly pierced through her fear-seared mind, the night she dismissed the tales, the dismissive laughter of neighbors who spoke of the Felders as if they were a lurking shadow. Little did she know that laughter would echo back in horror. A swell of anger rose in her chest, the need to confront this presence stronger than her fear. "Show me," she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "What have you done to my family?" The laughter deepened into something sinister, malevolent. A price must be paid for the truth. Shadows twisted and contorted, then collapsed like a black hole before her. It was an invitation, an ultimatum. Before she could reconsider, Sarah stepped forward into the void. A chill enveloped her, whispering to her soul. It felt like plunging into icy water, pulled under by an unseen force. Suddenly, she found herself in a landscape dimly lit, a tangled woods where trees stretched like skeletal fingers. The air held a damp, earthy scent intermingled with something sharper, a metallic tang that reminded her dreadfully of blood. "Welcome to the realm of the Felders," the voice hissed, echoing all around. "A place where regrets take root." Before her, shadows flickered and quivered, revealing figures locked in a silent, tortured dance. They were the Felders, their faces contorted in agony, mouths open as if screaming, but no sound emerged. Sarah's heart raced as she recognized a familiar face amid them, a woman whose resemblance to her own face sent icy fingers down her spine. "What is this?" she gasped, realization crashing over her like a wave. "Are they me? Are they part of me?" "Yes," the voice whispered, coiling around her thoughts. "Their curses twist through your blood, now entwined in your very essence. You cannot escape this legacy." Sarah stumbled back, the weight of despair crashing over her. The truth churned violently in her stomach. She turned to rush back, to flee, but the dense shadows surged forward, wrapping tightly around her, trapping her. "Choose wisely, Sarah," the voice taunted, "for the darkness thirsts for a sacrifice." Images flooded her mind, the children hidden in the closet, their innocent eyes wide with fear, her memories of laughter and warmth, all clashing with the dread of the unfolding curse. A desperate scream clawed at her throat, but only silence answered. Then she remembered the stories, how sacrifices were made to appease the restless spirits. "No. I want tea," she shouted defiantly, but the shadows tightened their grip. Could she defy the curse woven tightly into her being? Would you trade your loved ones' lives for yours? Would you push them into darkness to save yourself? The shadows pulsed, the edges brightening briefly before plunging her back into chaos. Panic surged again, and she felt her pulse quicken, knowing that she had to choose. But the choice was spiraling out of her control. The whispers grew deafening, filling her mind until she couldn't think straight. Something deep within her stirred the strength of a mother determined to protect her children. With newfound resolve, she shouted into the void, "I will break the curse. I refuse to let it claim us." But the shadows only laughed, a cacophony of voices merging into one. "Then prepare for the reckoning." As the darkness began to constrict tighter, Sarah felt her grip on reality wavering. The horrifying truth loomed over her. Was she truly prepared to confront the darkness? And then a scream ripped through the night, freezing her with terror. "Mommy!" Jake's voice echoed in her ears, piercing through the suffocating darkness. Would she have the strength to face whatever awaited her? The shadows swirled, eager, as her heart pounded in sync with the oncoming storm. What awaited Sarah as the shadows and the truth collided? The shadows twisted, coiling tighter around Sarah as Jake's scream resonated in her ears. Panic gripped her heart like a vice as she fought against the suffocating darkness. "Jake!" she cried out, desperation clawing at her throat. She spun in every direction, searching for him, but the forest around her only deepened into black. "Mommy!" The voice came again, this time tinged with terror. It was an echo, a reflection of her worst fears. She wasn't just trapped in this nightmarish realm, she was at the center of it, and her children were in danger. The whispering voice returned, sultry and mocking. "Do not fret, dear Sarah, your children know the price. They are already entangled in the web of the Felders. Their fates are tied to yours." "No!" she screamed, the word tearing from her lips. The ground beneath her feet pulsed with each heartbeat, echoing some ancient rhythm, a haunting melody of despair and loss. Images flashed before her, a home sinking under shadows, laughter snuffed out, memories dripping like wax from a candle. "What do you want from me?" Panic turned her voice ragged, and she crouched low, attempting to block out the haunting silhouettes dancing around her. The reply rolled over her, a chilling wind. "The truth demands a choice. Will you save them, or will you embrace the darkness as your own?" The ground gave a tremor, responding to her fear and outrage. "You're wrong. I won't sacrifice my children." The words held strength, powerful enough to cut through the shadows momentarily, but the darkness quickly returned, thickening again like a living entity, taunting her resolve. The echoing laughter of the spectral figures dissolved into the oppressive quiet, chilling her more than any noise could. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, inches away from disaster. She could sense a presence drawing closer, a sinister dread, coalescing into a form she could almost see. A figure loomed, taller than the trees, its intentions palpable in the gathering gloom. Then she felt a tug, steady and silent, behind her. Jake. Panic jolted through her. Jake. I need you to hold on. She twisted and stumbled towards the tug, her heart racing at a rate that felt nearly unnatural. Mommy, the whispering desperation rippled like a breeze. She turned, determination igniting in her chest. Despite the consuming shadows, she had to believe her children were not lost. She had to fight for them. As she sprinted deeper into the maze of intertwined branches and curling shadows, the crushing weight of horror wrapped around her. Find them, the voice urged. And face the truth. Sarah felt herself teetering on the edge. She reached out for something solid, something real, gripping at the bark of the trees as they loomed over her, their branches reaching like skeletal hands. With each frantic step, the shadows receded slightly, creating a flicker of light before her. Her breath hitched as she stumbled into a clearing, gasping as she faced another shadow, the distorted visage of a woman, her own reflection twisted in agony. You cannot escape who you are, it hissed, the voice intertwining with the howls of the wind. The figures around her stepped into view, revealing the tortured souls of those lost before her. No! She cried, tears streaming down her cheeks as not only her children's futures, but her own contained within this nightmare bore down on her. You don't own me. Yet your blood runs with the curse. You have the power to choose, to return to your children or to join us. The weight of the decision rushed over her, suffocating her like the darkness itself. Could she truly bear the weight of their curse on her shoulders? Make a choice or they will pay the price. The shadows quivered, pressing inward, forcing Sarah to take a stand against the mirror of her own fate. She could feel Jake's presence flickering like a light just beyond her reach, and with that thought, her spirit ignited. Whatever it takes, I will save them. But the shadows lunged, hungry for her answer, and the echo of her defiance faded as she felt the pull of destiny set against her. As her heart raced, out of the corner of her eye, she saw another movement, a flicker of light, just as an ear-splitting scream tore the silence apart, echoing through the trees. Mommy! The voice shattered through the darkness, chilling her to the bone. What was happening? With the darkness pressing around her, Sarah's chest tightened with realization. The blood of the Felders coursed through her veins, and the dread of her next choice settled like stone in her heart. Find the light before it dies, the whisper urged, swirling around her. What awaited her beyond this moment? Would she make it in time, or was the darkness already claiming its next victim? The scream lingered in the air like iron in her veins, heavy and bitter. Jake! Sarah's voice cracked, and she felt the darkness convulse around her like a beast awakening. Frantic, she spun towards where she believed the sound had come from, but the shadows seemed to close in tighter, mocking her every move. Each breath became a battle against an invisible weight. The oppressive night felt alive, moving with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Was the forest itself a creature, feeding on her fear? No. She wouldn't let it consume her. She had to keep moving. Mommy! The cry came again, this time echoing beneath the ground, reverberating within her very bones. The pained note made her stop, a painful reminder that time was slipping through her fingers like sand. I'm coming. Hold on. The dim light flickering before her drew her in, a beacon in this sea of despair. As she moved, the shadows writhed on the periphery of her vision, whispering doubts and fears. You'll only endanger them further, they taunted, voices swimming together to create a haunting dirge. Join us, Sarah. It's easier in the dark. No. The word burst from her lips, fierce and unyielding. She could not let them pull her under. Jake needed her, she was his only hope. As she continued deeper into the fog, she could feel a place in her heart, once warm and full of love, beginning to chill. The memories of her children merged with the shadowy figures surrounding her, the lost souls of the Felders, tangled in sadness and regret. "You don't have to choose," they cried in unison, their voices a discordant symphony that sent shivers down her spine. "Join us and be free." Sarah stumbled onward, struggling against the mounting despair. When she paused to catch her breath, a flicker caught her eye, not far ahead. There, amid the darkness, a golden glow flickered like a candle unyielding in a storm. It promised warmth, the promise of hope. "Jake!" she called, her heart pounding in her chest. She rushed towards the light, the eerie whispers like angry bees buzzing in her ears, demanding she turn back. But with each step, she felt an even deeper clarity, a focus that sharpened her resolve. The magic of the Felders wouldn't break her. But as she broke into the small glade, the golden light flickered once, then extinguished, plunging her back into obscurity. No! Despair erupted within her as she fell to her knees. The ground felt alive beneath her, vibrating with the ancient sorrow of countless lives lost. In that breathless moment, Sarah sensed movement behind her. She whipped around, eyes widening as she caught sight of a shadow rolling towards her with relentless purpose. It was darker, thicker than before. The shadows had a new form, a grotesque mass of darkness stretching as it lunged. "Join us," it hissed, the voice a raspy mockery of Jake S. "You can't fight what you are. Come, be free from the burden of choice. Get away from me." Panic surged through her body, fueling an adrenaline rush that propelled her to her feet. She dodged left, following the pull of the flickering echoes of Jake's presence. Just as the shadow lunged, she felt another tug on her heart, a flicker of something in the distance, a face, a precious memory. "I won't lose you," she shouted defiantly, pushing through the unseen barrier, attempting to hold her back. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and from the depths of the darkness, a figure emerged, a child, with familiar features twisted in torment. Sarah gasped, realization gripping her heart like a vice. "Jake!" But before she could reach him, the terrifying presence encircled them, ready to devour everything. The shadows swirled, engulfing her vision once more, and she was left in a swirling void where nothing was familiar. "Push through!" the whisper sang, begging her to take action. "Don't let the darkness steal your light. Find him, Sarah. Find the truth before it's too late." And as she fought to regain her footing, the shadows around her danced with insidious delight, threatening to choke off her hope. The pulse of the darkness quickened. "Time runs thin," it breathed. Foreboding and cold. Would she unearth the truth that lay buried in darkness, about to consume her? The stakes had never been higher, and the battle for her children's souls awaited just beyond the edge of despair. Would she make it to Jake before the darkness devoured him whole? The world around Sarah twisted, every shadow clawing at her sanity. The darkness pulsed like a heartbeat, echoing in her ears, thud, thud, thud. It felt as if the night itself had a pulse, a rhythm that synced with her growing terror. The tormented figure of Jake, a mere specter in the ghastly fog, taunted her from just beyond her reach. She steeled herself, her heart racing with desperation. "Jake!" she cried out again, the name tearing from her throat. The air was thick now, choking her as she shoved through the torment that threatened to drag her down. The whispers escalated, a frenzy of voices rising around her like howling winds. They were not just mocking now, they were pleading, angry, hungry for her surrender. "Join us no!" she shouted back, a desperate rejection. The word echoed in the oppressive night, strong against the cacophony of despair. Drawing a shaky breath, she closed her eyes for a fleeting moment. The warmth of her children surged through her, igniting a flicker of strength. She could hear their laughter above the hissing shadows, she could feel Jake's warmth against her skin like a child's reassurance. "Keep fighting, Mommy," a soft, urgent voice played in her mind, and she felt reality cling tighter, anchoring her to the truth. With renewed determination, she opened her eyes, lighting with fiery resolve. She bolted forward, chasing the memory of her child through the consuming darkness. Just beyond the shadows, she could see him, a child figure dimmed by despair but still flickering with familiar life. His features warped, just as she was reaching. But she had to be close now. Every footfall echoed louder, creating an urgent rhythm that hinted at both hope and doom. Then, the forest erupted in an ear-splitting howl, the kind that sends icy tendrils down the spine. Panic coursed through her veins as flurries of shadowy figures whipped around in a chaotic dance. She ignored the movements, focused instead on the fading vision of Jake. "I'm almost there," she yelled, convinced that every ounce of strength was needed to shatter through the painful grip of despair. Yet, the shadows surged forward, encircling her like a ravenous pack. They howled louder, each guttural voice merging into a grotesque symphony. "Join us, give in to the darkness, shut up." The defiance rang in her stirring heart. She pressed on, forward into the tangled mass of darkness, refusing to give in. The ground squirmed beneath her, filled with the energy of those who once walked there, only to be lost. In that chaos, something solid struck her, a small hand, warm, clammy and familiar. "Mommy!" Jake cried, his face a flash of anguished innocence. The clarity struck like lightning. He was here, within reach, but as she grabbed his hand, something shrieked from behind, a monstrous roar that filled the night like a storm. Sarah felt it, a vast, swirling darkness rippling around her. The shadows sensed their fleeting defeat and lashed out violently, threatening to consume them both. "Run!" Sarah pulled Jake, heart racing as they dashed away together. The darkness followed, swirling like a malicious whirlwind intent on claiming them. She glanced back, and panic gnawed at her heart. The figures swarmed, faces twisted and eyes empty. They stretched toward her, animate and desperate, reaching the edge of her vision as she tore through the cacophony of despair. The flickering hope began to dim, the forest around them closing like a trap. A clearing appeared in the distance. Was it just a mirage? She couldn't tell. "Keep going. Don't look back. Mommy." Jake's voice trembled as they sprinted forward, and at that moment, she felt the hot breath of darkness just behind them. Then, in a shattering instant, the ground erupted. Shadows twisted and crawled upward, a beast awakening from centuries of slumber, hungry for life, for them. Jake's tiny voice broke through but was swallowed by a deep growl. Could she escape them, or would the past pull them back to the depths where nightmares lay waiting? The truth loomed, just beyond reach, wrapping its fingers tighter around her heart. Time was running out, and the final tendrils of hope threatened to unravel, and in the darkness ahead, a pair of glowing eyes glimmered with malicious intent, watching, waiting what awaited them as they raced towards the unknown. The ground trembled again, the malevolence of the shadows shifting like a living thing. Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps, each inhale battling against the thick, suffocating air. The heat of fear pressed down on her, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. She tightened her grip on Jake's clammy hand, feeling his small fingers curl into hers with a fierce grip, as if he sensed the nightmare closing in. "Stay close," she shouted, trying to pierce through the cacophony around them. But the shadows were relentless. With each surge they made, she could hear the whispers clearer now, like scratching nails on wood, thrumming in her mind. The voices of the lost, the damned, were stirring again. "Join us, shut up," she screamed. Adrenaline surged, pushing her forward, pushing against the thrumming heartbeat of the darkness. They darted past gnarled trees, roots clawing at their ankles as if the forest itself was alive, conspiring with the shadows that surged like tidal waves. She felt Jake stumble, a brief flash of terror crossing her heart. She snatched him back, almost throwing him ahead, their pace unyielding as they kicked dirt and leaves into the air. Ahead, the clearing drew nearer, a beacon in the oppressive gloom. But even as she ran, doubts gnawed at her. Would it be a sanctuary or a snare? Everything around her flickered, joy twisted into hideous shapes. A figment of light became distorted reality, taunting them as shadows danced dangerously close. "Mommy," Jake whimpered again, his voice strained. "Keep running," she urged, forcing every ounce of courage into those two words. They burst into the clearing, and for a moment, her heart lifted. The moon hung full and bright above, casting silver on the clearing floor. But there was no relief, only a gutting realization. The ground writhed beneath them, like a serpent waiting to strike. "Mommy! Look!" Jake pointed, and dread pooled in Sarah's stomach. The clearing, her brief moment of hope, morphed. The earth was riddled with graves, freshly disturbed, the soil dark and damp, as if expelling long-buried secrets. A shadow shifted at the far perimeter and jolted her back to the present. A figure stepped out, pale and hag-like, eyes bright with malice. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, voice rasping like gravel. "This land cradles our souls, you've awakened them." The energy of the place felt charged, electric, every hair on Sarah's body standing on end. Shadows curled and twisted around her, solidifying into faces, cruel and hollow. They jeered and wailed, their anger palpable, pushing her into a primal fear. With a lurch, she dragged Jake backward, stumbling, trying to push back against the wave of terror that threatened to swallow them whole. "What do you want?" she yelled, voice ragged. "Leave us alone." But the shadows closed in, their grasp tightening, testing her resolve. The shape of the hag wavered before her, a grotesque smile splitting its face. "You belong to us now just like the others." A screech echoed, reverberating off the trees, and Sarah's resolve began to falter. A flicker of brilliance in the darkness, the glowing eyes returned, larger than before, impossibly hungry. They were coming for her, a tidal surge of darkness aiming to drown her hope. Suddenly, her hand slipped out of Jake's, and time paused for a heartbeat. She could feel his distance, the horror creeping into her consciousness. "No!" she cried, desperate, as panic enveloped her heart. "Jake!" But his figure wavered, a moment of doubt sparking within her. Would she abandon her child to save herself? The darkness laughed, the screeches amplified by her fear. In that moment, everything blurred. The past flooded in. Memories of laughter morphed into echoes of despair, shadows laughing as if they had orchestrated it all, her choices, her guilt. Sarah's heart raced. Could she escape the guilt that chained her? Would she become one of the lost? As the shadows writhed, searching for her soul, she knew one thing: she had to fight, no matter the cost. With a fierce shout, she lunged forward, reaching for Jake. But would it be enough? The darkness surged, clawing with a hunger she could feel deep in her bones. The howl of shadows enveloped them, and the bright clearing faded to black. What terror awaited them in this abyss, where hope hung by a single thread? The world dissolved into an oppressive darkness. Sarah felt a weight crushing her chest, stinging her eyes so that she could barely open them. Every instinct screamed at her to wake up or run. But she wasn't asleep. No, she was caught in a living nightmare, swirling chaos closing in. "Jake!" Her voice sliced through the darkness, but there was no answer. A sickening fear wound tightly around her heart, choking her resolve. How had she lost him? The last glimpse she'd caught of him seemed so far away. Panic ignited within her. She stumbled forward, arms flailing in the void. Where was he? The chuckling thoughts of shadows echoed in her mind, mocking her. "You lost him, and now you will join him. Shut up!" She screamed into the emptiness, throwing her voice against the intangible walls of dread. But it was met only with silence. She felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Was it a trick of her mind? Or was the very earth conspiring against her? Images flickered Jake's face, bright and laughing, then distorted by fear and helplessness. The memories clawed at her, and she fought them back. Jake. She took a hesitant step, the damp earth cold and clammy against her bare feet. The shadows whispered around her, shifting back and forth like mists that slithered at her heels. "Where are you?" Suddenly, a weak light broke through the darkness, shimmering and flickering like a candle in a tempest. Sarah darted toward it, hope blossoming in her chest. The shadows hissed, spitting their venomous warnings. But she didn't care, she had to find Jake. As she neared the light, it grew brighter, illuminating twisted, gnarled roots emerging like skeletal hands from the earth. They writhed feverishly, reaching for her, the shadows coiling around them as if to protect their secrets. The closer she got, the more exaggerated her memories of Jake became, decorating her mind with fear-filled echoes. "Mommy!" His voice, fragile and trembling, sliced through the static of despair. "Jake!" She surged forward, adrenaline spurring her on. The shadows screamed again, a chorus of lost souls yearning to drag her down into their prison. "Mommy, help!" The light pulsed, casting twisted shapes all around her, turning the uncaring forest into a festival of madness. She spotted him, a small silhouette entangled with a mass of shadows, their fingers entwined with his. What had they done? She tore past the writhing roots, her heartbeat deafening in her ears. Each step felt like running through quicksand. "Jake, no!" She reached out, and as her fingers brushed against him, a surge of coldness washed over her. The shadows recoiled, unleashing a roar of rage that threatened to drown her. "You're too late. He is ours now." She grasped Jake, pulling him close, feeling the warmth of his skin against the chilling pull of the shadows. But the power of darkness only deepened as Jake went limp, eyes darting in terror. "Mommy, I can't see, hold on to me." Her voice trembled, fierce yet desperate. She felt the shadows claw at them, an insatiable hunger almost palpable. "We'll get out of this, I promise." But as she pulled him against her, the shadows thickened, enveloping them like fog, suffocating hope. Each whisper tinged with threat lingered in her ears. Would she ever escape? The shadows tightened their grip, wrapping around her like a sinister embrace. With one final push, she plunged into the light, her mind screaming for salvation. "We can't be caught. We can't." As they broke free from the darkness, a new landscape rose before them, a grotesque reflection of the real world, a chilling hallway painted in blood, its walls endless. "Mommy, what is this?" Jake asked, his small voice trembling. Terror gripped Sarah's heart. "I don't know." Then, the echo of laughter returned, taunting them from the darkened ends of the hallway. "Join us or face the real truth." With dread pooling in her stomach, she clutched Jake tighter, battling against the inexorable pull of those vile whispers. Now, it wasn't just survival, it was a race against the darkness within their very souls. Would they be able to endure? What lay ahead, or would the secrets of the cursed land pull them under forever? As Sarah and Jake stumbled through the darkened hallway, shadows slithered along the walls, taunting them with sinister laughter that twisted like barbed wire in her ears. The air was thick with dread, making it hard to breathe. Each step felt like walking through molasses. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead, both familiar and terrifying, a nightmare come to life. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jake whispered, his small voice trembling. Her heart ached at the fear in his eyes. She knelt beside him, cupping his tiny face in her hands. "It's okay, my love. Just hold my hand. We'll get through this together," she said, trying to muster courage she didn't fully feel. With shakiness but determination, she squeezed his hand, propelling them forward. The shadows shrieked, angry puffs of cool air chilling her spine. Sarah steeled her nerves, they needed to reach the end. She remembered the stories, the cursed spirits, the price paid for discovering the truth. It all flooded back in painful clarity. She would not let this fate consume them. Suddenly, a blinding light flickered in the distance, vibrant and warm. "Look, Jake. Do you see that?" She pointed ahead, hope igniting a spark in her chest. The warmth seemed to push away the shadows, illuminating a door at the end of the hallway. "Mommy, is that the way out?" Jake asked, eyes wide with wonder and fear. "Yes." "Just a little further," Sarah urged, gripping Jake's hand tighter. They surged forward, and the shadows hissed, unforgiving and furious, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Just as they reached the threshold, a chilling, familiar voice boomed all around them. You cannot leave. The truth must be faced, or your souls will be ours. The words reverberated like thunder, sending shards of fear slicing through Sarah. She turned back, seeing twisted figures, the tormented souls of the Felders reaching toward them with ghastly intent. No! Sarah shouted. We will not join you. With sheer will, she pushed open the door, light flooding in like a tidal wave, washing over her like warm sunlight chasing away the shadows. A sudden burst of color surrounded them, and at that moment, she heard her children's laughter, a sound she thought she might never hear again. Stay with me, Jake. Together they leaped through the doorway and felt an intense rush, a cleansing wave of energy. The shadows clawed at them, shrieking, but they were no longer tethered to the darkness. Sarah felt the pull of dread fading into nothingness. As they emerged into the clearing, the moonlight shone radiant, illuminating a path deeper into the woods. The oppressive weight of the curse lifted, the whispers dimming into a far-off memory. She looked at Jake, then at the beauty around them. It was haunting yet peaceful. Mommy! He beamed, his laughter ringing like bells, slicing through the remnants of fear. We made it. Yes, baby, she breathed, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. They had fought through the darkness and emerged into the light, drawing strength from each other as mother and son. But even as joy surged within her, a shadow flickered in the corner of her vision. She turned sharply. A familiar figure stood among the trees, still and silent faces of the Felders lingered in the wood, watching. Dread twisted in her stomach. Thank you for facing the truth, Sarah, the whispering voice echoed softly. You have freed your children. But know we will forever remain with you, entwined in your legacy, waiting no. She barked defiantly, lifting Jake higher into her arms as if to shield him from the binding reminder of curses and bloodlines. You have no power over us. With fierce determination, she stepped further into the light, leading Jake away from the shadows that flickered behind. As they crossed the threshold, the weight of the past slipped away, leaving only echoes. They would take the steps necessary to build a new life, breaking the cycle of fear that had gripped the Felders and had momentarily ensnared her family. Mommy, where are we going? Jake asked, eyes wide with anticipation. To the sunrise. Sarah replied, heart liberated. From the chains that bound her. We will find our way home and together, we will create a new story. With each step forward, she felt the chains break. They walked towards hope, the haunting whispers fading into nothing but a gentle breeze, a memory slipping away as they embraced the dawn. This is how they would reclaim their lives. But as the first rays of dawn broke, shadows lingered in the depths of the trees, waiting patiently for the next moment of vulnerability when weakness and fear might weave their stories anew. Before we wrap this up, there is something really important you need to do. If you want to stay in the loop for more heart-pounding tales like this, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button now. Let us feed the algorithm and keep the stories coming, and please, flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. I want to hear from every single one of you. Finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep this community alive.